We've all hit that afternoon wall. It's that heavy feeling that arrives right after lunch, when your eyelids feel like lead, or that sudden wave of intense sedation that washes over you after eating a massive plate of pasta. People usually blame these sudden drops in attention and mood on a lack of sleep the night before, or simply the exhaustion of a stressful workday. But the true puppeteer behind that brain fog isn't your sleep schedule. It's the exact chemical makeup of the food currently digesting in your stomach. To understand why these cognitive shifts happen, you have to look at the brain as a highly demanding biological engine. It requires a constant, highly specific fuel mixture of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates to keep running. Every single bite of food you consume acts as direct biological code that immediately alters how your brain functions, feels, and focuses. Curious, this diagram illustrates a massive imbalance. While the human brain only makes up about 2% of your total body weight, the scale shows it draining up to 20% of your body's entire energy resources. To meet that massive, continuous energy requirement, your body relies primarily on dietary carbohydrates. It breaks them down into blood sugar, or glucose, and sends it straight up to fuel the brain tissue. This graph tracks the mechanics of the post-lunch crash. When you eat high-glycemic foods, like white bread, they digest incredibly fast. This forces a rapid, overwhelming dump of glucose into your bloodstream. The inevitable consequence of that spike is a dramatic drop. The blood sugar supply plummets, and because the frontal lobes are particularly sensitive to these drops in glucose, your mental function begins to shift. That sudden loss of attention span is a primary biological signal your brain sends when it detects a deficiency in its immediate nutrient supply. Sustaining your focus throughout the day requires regulating the speed of that glucose release. Choosing slower digesting carbohydrates like oats or legumes delivers a steady drip of energy that prevents the spike and avoids the crash entirely. The chemical makeup of your food also dictates your emotional state, explaining why a protein-rich meal might make you hyper-alert, while a bowl of pasta induces a sense of calm. This happens because proteins break down into smaller molecules called amino acids. To get into the brain, these different amino acids have to literally compete against each other for limited access points. They fight for access because these amino acids act as the foundational building blocks for neurotransmitters. Once inside, they lock into place, forming the chemical messengers that carry signals between your neurons. These specific messengers, like dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, directly manipulate your internal state, pulling the levers on your mood, attentiveness, and sleep cycle. Eating a heavily skewed meal floods your system with only one type of amino acid precursor. That swamps the entryways, tilting your brain's chemical cocktail to an extreme emotional state. A balanced emotional and psychological baseline requires a varied diet. This strictly ensures a stable, competing mix of these mood-altering messengers, so your brain doesn't skew entirely in one direction. Beyond daily swings in mood and energy, the food you eat actively constructs your brain's physical architecture for the long term. If you successfully sucked all the moisture out of your brain, what would the remaining solid matter actually look like? As this pie chart overlay clearly illustrates, the vast majority of your dehydrated brain's weight wouldn't be protein or carbohydrates. More than half of its total volume consists of lipids or fats, specifically omegas 3 and 6. Because our bodies can't produce these essential fatty acids on their own, we have to source them from foods like nuts, seeds, and fatty fish. The brain carefully uses them to physically construct and maintain cellular membranes, which heavily prevents degenerative conditions over time. While fats provide the physical structure, a steady supply of micronutrients acts as the brain's defense force. Antioxidants and B vitamins patrol the tissue, actively fighting off destructive free radicals to prevent cognitive decline. Carbohydrates provide the immediate fuel, and proteins dictate your daily mood. But those fats and micronutrients act as the essential mortar and shield, keeping the entire organ intact over your lifespan. When you pull all of these biochemical threads together, eating a varied diet reveals itself as a strict mechanical requirement, completely separate from calorie counting or weight management. Consuming trans fats and triggering constant blood sugar spikes writes unstable biological code. This immediately compromises your focus and degrades your long-term health. Conversely,
opting for complex carbohydrates like oats and legumes, alongside a rich supply of omegas, writes stable code. It provides the exact raw materials required for a steadier level of attentiveness and sustained brain power. So the next time you sit down to bite, chew, and swallow, remember what's actually happening. You are actively engineering the physical structure and the immediate performance of the most complex organ in your body.